And welcome back to the Part-Time Otaku Podcast. My name is Dave.
My name's Grant.
And here we review the weekly episodes of Attack on Titan. Today we're going to talk about Season 4, Episode 12. If this is your first time joining us, we're anime-only watchers. We break this down week to week, talk about, a quick summary of the episode, and then some of our favorite moments, least favorite moments, theories, etc. Before we jump in, I want to give a big shout out to the Capito on Reddit, no social, but interacted with you on Reddit, and that's where we got our 6th thumbnail for today's episode.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's killer. This, Grant, do you remember specifically, this one he told me was, he carved this thumbnail right out of the manga, which is also one of my favorite scenes in the entire anime, which is right before, in Season 3, towards the end, right before Erwin's, death charge at the Beast. Do you remember that scene?
Vaguely.
It has one of the best lines, or one of my favorite lines from Levi in it, because Erwin kind of, comes out and is like, I just want to see the fucking basement,
Yeah.
I was really stoked.
Yeah.
And then Levi just goes, give up on your dream and die.
Yeah.
Lead those scouts straight into hell.
Brutal.
And I remember,
Levi.
Yeah, so Levi, exactly. Fucking no. But I love that scene. And so very cool to have it as today's thumbnail.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Okay, so moving in. Season 4, Episode 12, Guides. This is what went down. Elena admits to Pixas that she secretly met with Eren several months ago, requesting that he force the military's hand. Elena claims she did this alone without the knowledge of her comrades. Anya Capone indicates that Elena has some experience in espionage and assassinations.
At headquarters, Premier Zachary is killed by a bomb placed by Jaegerists hidden in the military, who then help Eren escape. Pixas tightens security around Zeke. Hanj believes that Zeke planned for this eventuality, so she begins to investigate where other Marley volunteers have been placed.
Good episode.
Yeah.
When you say it makes me think you have reservations.
No, I wouldn't say reservations. Probably the only eye roll moment in Attack on Titan history for myself.
Oh, where?
We'll get to that, but
Okay.
nothing major. But as a whole, very very good episode. A lot of our suspicions are kind of coming to fruition, I believe, and not so secret. I feel like they've been leading up to this more or less the whole season so far.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to see the fruits of our hunches kind of showing themselves a little bit more this episode. Again, it's not full guarantee, I think, but it seems to be going in that direction.
Feels like we're in the early stages of a twist. We, one thing we've talked a lot about on the show is the pacing, right? We had this slow build in the beginning that practically had you salivating for conflict by the time it hit. Yeah. And then it did, and it was excellent, and it delivered. And now, we took this back seat for the last few episodes to get back to some of the political intrigue. And, to be fair, Attack on Titan has been doing this for years with, significant success. So they kind of went back to the roots for a bit, and now we're here, and it's interesting.
I would say, this, again, I think it's a great episode.
But
but not even but I found, you can speak for yourself on this, but last episode was just a straight punch to the face. It was the emotion I feel like we needed this season to see the character development of Gabby.
Oh yeah.
And just her arc and Falco's arc was very perfectly timed, I feel, for kind of what we had seen.
Yep.
Because we also had just seen an episode that we weren't super hot on, so it kind of was a big spark in a dry forest for us. And this episode feels like a follow-up punch, but I feel like the last episode just hit so hard. It kind of took some of the thunder from this, because there's huge moments in this episode, and there's
big time.
A lot of really, really important stuff. It was almost like I wish there was a buffer episode. I wish we had, you know what I mean?
I see where you're coming from, because there are some really major developments that we're going to get to, and it feels like they tried to almost do slightly too much. Maybe
too soon, too much too soon after we had just seen. But it's two different types of episodes. It's hard, and this is where it's getting a little tricky with how many episodes are left of the season.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm not holding anything against it. It's just from last week, which is an episode we love, and as me as a fan of the season, of like my connection to like Gabby and kind of the Marlians, it was a really awesome episode that I feel like everyone needed, and we need this one too. You know what I mean? Like it's not bad, but it's like, look what we just had.
Yeah.
You know, it's because the first half of the season was like climb, and then we had that huge climax with, you know, Aaron and, you know, the fight in with
Marley.
with Z in Marley, sorry. So it's, you know, like I said, great episode. I'm not trying to fault anything on it. It's just last week's was so great, and it's still in my mind so much. Like all those moments, probably some of the biggest moments in the show's history.
Yeah, I want to talk a bit about that, you know, the big moments, but maybe towards the end of the podcast. I'm curious about a couple things.
Yeah.
So let's start with the beginning of the episode. You know, we get this scene that didn't feel like it gave me much. I mean, maybe I missed something, or maybe it's just a panel they decided to include, but it's the opening on Armin trying to communicate or touch, you know, the shell that Annie is in, and then being like caught by Hitch. You know, I almost kind of wondered. I don't think we've seen Hitch. She was like a recurring character in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen her yet, and I almost wonder if there's a reason why they brought her back, like perhaps to remind us that she's alive so that they can kill her real quick. But, you know, weird opening. I thought the first thing that was like noteworthy to me in the episode was, you know, the papers publishing that Aaron is being held by the military.
Yeah.
That feels like a shift, and they set the tone pretty effectively throughout the rest of the episode that there is dissent, both publicly and privately in the military, that not everybody is on board with what's happening to Aaron.
And the smart thing they did about this, because, you know, that was one of, obviously, you know, it's hard to miss, but they've definitely set up this season, how much has changed over this time. This wasn't a surprise to us, you know, like showing like the public dissent. It shows like so much has happened so quick, like with, you know, just like technological advancements for parody, and you know, the idea that there is like a much bigger world out there. So it was nice how they kind of not so much snuck this in, but they kind of snuck the backstory to make this more sense and have more weight to it.
Sure.
You know, and then also last week we just with the reporters kind of talking to Hanj, trying to get some answers out of her. It made sense. It fit. And this is where the show has been doing great, is they've been peppering little stuff like this, like the world, like just the greater scope of the world. And where moments like this happen, it's like, yes, you know, like it does make sense that, you know, the public, it doesn't trust the government now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Especially it's in stark contrast to the ending of season 3, right? When the scouts decided to release all the information that they got out of the basement. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, we want to be an open and transparent government. And now it doesn't look, it's just not as simple, right? No. And you can really appreciate like Hanji's position and how she definitely seems to be maybe a little bit out of her depth, or maybe just overwhelmed to a certain extent with how everything is changing.
Well, it just goes to show how it's not that parody was like, you know, a child entering the world stage, which they were. They had no idea of the scope of like the problems that would come their way.
Yeah.
You know,
which I'm still happy with the reveal. You know, every time you think about it, like I'm still happy with the fact that it turned out to be like that sandbox thing.
Yeah.
Where, you know what I mean? Because these problems do make complete sense, right? If you thought you were the only people on the planet, and it turns out you're not, and not only that, but you're severely like outgunned and primitive in comparison to the rest of the world, shit would get complicated.
Yeah.
So it all tracks to me.
Absolutely.
The next scene is Elena and Pixas. So this is a slightly longer scene, and I feel like one of the more important scenes of the episode.
I would say. I don't know about you. Did you find it like weirdly paced? Like there's a lot of quick cuts in the scene. It was going from like Pixas to Elena to, I'm assuming is his like right hand person. There's the woman. I don't think we've seen her before. She didn't look familiar.
Semi familiar, but I definitely don't have a name.
Yeah, and so, you know, it was cutting between the three of them, and then, you know, I think it was pretty evident that Pixas was like not on her side. He was kind of coaxing up to her to, you know, make the reveal of like, hey, like, and I think you and I had said this last week. It's like, we got you, you know, like we got you red-handed, but like he was still kind of slowly going into it. And this scene was great because it just showed Pixas, you know, try and like kind of like the soft hand, let her say her piece. And you know, he has that line of you know, it's so funny, it's the second time I've watched something this week where they make this similar line of
do you know how to tell a good lie?
You know how to tell a good lie. You know, there's always some truth. You know, you tell some truth, and I'm completely blanking on what else I had watched this week that made that same line. But I was like, oh, that's funny. You know, that's a good narrative trope. You know, it was Star Wars. We've been watching Rebels, and
nice.
that was a line. That was a line right out of that. But no, Pixas is smart. Like, he's clearly like,
he is. They've done a good job making him credible throughout the previous 3 seasons. Like, he comes in and solves some problems. Like, I think there's like the whole coup thing, if that's in season 2 or 3. He's a part of that. You know, he's part of Aaron's development early on, so he's no slouch. You know, he's a very formidable opponent for Elena.
He's been kind of positioned as like, maybe not a great phrase, but like the White Knight. You know, he's kind of like seems squeaky clean, and you know, he has very good, like, he has respect, has a good military track record and all that. You know, to get to his rank, obviously you would think it doesn't necessarily always mean that, because there's a lot of nepotism. There was a lot of nepotism in the government, so it's kind of nice to see him have his moment of, haha, like, I got you moment. Like, you know, you sneaky weasel, like, I got you, like. And I feel like they should have played that up more. You know, he was so monotone through the whole thing. I was like, oh, did he get her? Like, I was waiting for that. You know, it was, you only had to work with what he said. He didn't have like a lot of inflection in his voice of trying to get the one over on her. So it was kind of like a bittersweet scene for me.
Yeah,
you know?
So if we get into the weeds and the details, Yelena basically says, you know, I did meet with Aaron, and we learn that, like, you know, it picks up on a thread from last week where Flock, I believe, was supervising Yelena, and long story short, he connected the two of them for a secret meeting. And it seems like Aaron and her were aligned in that the military was taking too long to act, and she, in her words, said, like, someone should light a fire under them to get them moving. We don't know exactly what happens, you know, like, her and Pixas go back and forth on the exact wording, yada, yada, yada. But it you know, it seems like they had a conversation and then Aaron acted. But I don't trust her at all.
No. And you could tell no one on that balcony with them trusts a single thing she's saying.
Because, you know, it's like your weekly reminder that, like, we still don't know what Zeke's motivation is. Why did he switch sides? Aaron, while we understand Aaron, you know, and I'm sure we'll get into it, you know, is very devoted to his cause, it still feels like he's holding out something too. Was Yelena the messenger for that? And then even then, you know, Pixas was like, you know, are you trying to manipulate our boy? And she has that fucking look in her eyes. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, I wouldn't manipulate him. I just want him to know me.
Yeah, that was the big thing. I just wanted him to know who I was. And I was like, she sounds like a zealot. And I'm almost wondering if it's an act.
I don't know. Because go ahead.
Well, I don't want to put too much water to this theory, but I've been mulling it over. You know, since her introduction, you know, you and I, and I'm assuming the internet, I haven't been too much reading online, no one trusts her. Like, it's clear as day. You know, like, she is very, like, I'm almost wondering if this is kind of a misdirect. They're making us seem this way, you know.
It would be effective if it was. I'll tell you that, because I'm buying it.
It would be very effective. The thing that's making me think about it more, though, is you would think Zeke's betrayal would be a big reveal. Do you know what I mean? Do you think, like, a moment like that would catch everyone by surprise? But they're now leading up to that they think Zeke is up to something.
Yeah.
So I'm almost wondering if maybe there's a little bit of misdirect going on here, because they want us. That's what they want us to see, and then, like, out of, like, you know, like a flash, it's actually this. It was something else. Okay. So again, I don't trust Elena at all from what has been presented to us.
We definitely
and, like, her
should not.
Yeah. No. And, you know, and jumping ahead a little bit, you know, there's a very, very important scene. I guess we can kind of go to that with Oni Capone. And he more or less says, oh yeah, like, she probably isn't that trustworthy, you know? Like,
he's like, now that you ask, that bitch is crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, the he just makes like a nonchalant reference of like, oh yeah, she if someone was not in the cause, like 100% fully in the cause, like they were. I think the first thing he says is, yeah, people have been pushed off roofs. And I was like, what?
It's like, oh yeah, at one time I said I didn't like gingers, and then they all turned up dead.
Yeah, it was, it's so it's I don't know, I don't know if I'm thinking about it too much, and the show is trying to do this to us. Do you know what I mean? Like,
okay, so
because we're at the end game, it's anything is up, so it's everyone's getting a little fervor-ish over this.
Okay, so I have some thoughts about this, but I'll do them quick, and I'll just say, I think that they are absolutely trying to show you that she's not trustworthy, and that she has, she's capable of manipulation. Anya Capone's scene, like you said, is important. What does it tell us? It tells us that he has seen a very clearly different and conniving version of her in his own experiences than Hanji has seen, for example.
Sure.
And now that we have this information about Eren, we know that, she may or may not be telling the truth. She may be a good liar. At the very least, she may have convinced Eren to do something. And she's all over the place. And about the whole, like, is it a misdirect thing? I think that's a good point. It might be. I will say that her character intro about, like, learning about her motivations is, like, her talking about how Zeke is a god.
Yeah.
How she believes she saw God when she saw him in the beast.
Because you and I had said that was from her voice and her perspective. It wasn't like a scene we had seen. It wasn't fact. That was just her presenting herself to them in the way she wanted to be seen. Yeah. And that was the biggest thing for me. That I think that scene specifically, where like they showed him like with all that color and like he looked like the Messiah, I think that was very purposely used.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all.
Yeah.
I think that, they're definitely evoking some kind of, like you said, religious zealot, like cultish behavior. There's a lot of like crazy ideology shit running around in this show. That's a new take on it. So, yeah, I mean, I think we both agree, just as we always have, like, you can't trust this bitch. No. She's fucking crazy. She scares me. I don't feel safe.
She looks like her mod, like her visage, she looks like a snake, like her jawline and her eyes, and the way like her eyes will kind of like just sharpen.
They do a really good job of that, putting that look in her eye, and I think that's hard to do. It can be tricky to do in anime, but like they do a really good job of when she looks kind of possessed and like obsessive, and that's been a few times now. They do a really good job consistently. Okay, after this, there's the whole scene with Premier Zachary and Mikasa and Armin.
Weird. First part of the scene is very weird.
Yeah, the whole thing's weird. I mean, the essence of the scene is Armin and Mikasa want to see Eren. He says no. We don't trust him. We think it's potential. It's possible that he's being manipulated by Zeke via Elena.
Which they're not wrong.
What am I talking about?
Yelena. At least he's. It kind of shows the faith that Zachary had in those two, because, I feel like in any other situation, they would not be telling specifically those two anything, or anyone in that crew for that matter, because there's always the chance that their loyalties would lie with their friend more than potentially the government. So there's a lot of water to them being, like we think he's in some way he's been manipulated. Like we're not fully sure why or what, but it's
and Zachary's an interesting character. Like I haven't gone back and looked, but he has been around for a long time.
I think from the get-go, he's very early on he was introduced.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, or you or anyone, but I think that he was the one who decided upon the discovery that Eren had the ability to turn into a Titan. I think it was him who put him in the Scouts' custody. You remember that like famous scene of Levi beating the shit out of Eren in open court?
I was gonna say the first time we saw him was that court scene, I believe.
Yeah, so he's been around. It's I think they handle him relatively well as character, because it's like, well, he is high up, but we haven't seen enough of him to know that he's trustworthy or necessarily untrustworthy. Was it him? Do you remember that medieval fucking scene in like season 2 or 3 where they were torturing a guy with a chair device that turned him like upside down and fed him his own shit?
Holy cow. Okay,
do you remember that?
I do not remember that.
Oh my god.
I wanted to talk about the chair because they kind of have a shot right on the chair, and I was like, am I supposed to know what that is?
Yeah, I don't. Okay, so might get lit up for this, but like this did happen. Like factually, I've seen people allude to it. I just can't remember what season it's in, and I can't remember if it's Zachary. But there's a torture scene at one point where I believe they're trying to figure shit out from people. I think it's like they're trying to get information about the Titans hiding in the walls from the church, or maybe it's one of Kenny's crew they're torturing. I can't remember. I'm sorry, but there's a scene where they torture a man, and I think it's him, and he puts they have like a whole enema machine that is in a tube, and it feeds into his mouth. It's awful.
I am completely blanking on this.
Okay.
I honestly cannot recall this.
I will make a note for the poop chair.
Yeah.
And we'll revisit that next week.
Yeah.
I'll make sure we both watch the clip.
Okay.
So anyway, all of that happens. He may or may not be involved in the poop chair, but he is for sure involved in this weird torture chair. Right? So
he brought it in. He had asked for it to be delivered.
So do you think that was like a weird misdirect? Like, was their intention? Because Mikasa basically says after this, maybe because they don't trust Eren, they intend to take the Titan away from him. What do you think about that? Do you think like...
I think that's 100% true. Because there's the whole scene, there's the dinner scene that big scene with the kind of like the talking heads they were going on about
episode
Historia.
Or two ago, yeah.
Yeah, very recently. I think that is kind of the beginning of what they're leading to with that, because there's clearly going to be more dissent. By the end of the episode, I don't want to jump too ahead, but there's a lot of different paths where different groups are going to be heading. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's not a united front by any means. Mm-hmm. And I don't, and this is the big part where we were talking before. There's so little time left. With now by the end of this episode, there is so many directions it can go in 4 episodes. It's actually asinine, like where this can go. Mm-hmm. And this whole scene with the chair, I just can't think about it too much, because this was similar to like the iceberg stone. When they introduced that, I was like, whatever. Like what happens? Yeah. What happens. And when I see it, if it makes sense, it'll make sense. I don't know. If they're like, he's clearly dead, because
obviously,
and it will we'll cut to that, but I don't know. And
so the chair was weird, man.
The chair was very weird.
They introduced it. Maybe it was like, and maybe we'll learn more later. But like my take right now is like, did they simply introduce that just to tell you like, oh, they're probably gonna try and strap Eren down and like fucking need him, or they're gonna try and torture him to gain information, or torture somebody else, but like too late, that doesn't happen because he's assassinated. I don't know. Maybe that was just like to represent his motive. He had intentions of moving against,
and they knew that.
Yeah,
because
or we'll learn more later. But I feel like we might not.
Because the other thing too, because earlier in the episode, we're completely getting caught up on this, but the earlier in the episode, Mikasa and Armin see 3 scouts, recruits.
Yes.
And they make a note.
They're at HQ.
They're at HQ, yes. And they make a note of, oh, that's why are they here? Mm-hmm. But they weren't 3 scouts walking into his office.
Not at that time, but like they were in the building or on the premises.
No. But the 3 that walked into the room, because they immediately, the following scene is
3 people walk in as Mikasa and Armin walk out for their own meeting.
But then there's it's kind of, we should probably talk a little ahead, because this is all kind of connected one together. 3 people go in. I don't think they're scouts. A bomb goes off. Zachary is dead, and actually just before that, there's a moment of Mikasa's like, I'm gonna go listen through the door.
Yeah.
And Armin's like, no, like
maybe not.
We got to play our cards right here. Good foresight on Armin, plot armor at play, but and then it kind of cuts to a room of, it's the scouts on one side, and I think it's the military police on the other, and clearly the one side is not okay with, like, the military police even to this day is so scummy, and like. It's it's so funny. Like we've been calling Zeke an opportunist. The military police, since the beginning of the series, that has been like their keyword. Like they are so crooked, And I don't know, and they're just pointing the finger.
Yeah, that was. Sorry, go ahead.
Why? Because then they make a reference of, oh, yeah, a chair was brought in. We think the chair was armed with a bomb, but it's like, okay, but there was also 3 other people that walked in that room that they're not mentioning, and they do blow right past that. They immediately say it was the chair.
Yeah, they mention like, oh, maybe it was the chair, but they also mentioned that the other 3 people all got killed too.
Yes, but again, we're dealing with like zealots potentially, like people that are willing to die for a cause.
You think it might have been a suicide bomb?
Absolutely, and because Armin is the only one that makes up a point of, we saw scouts earlier, and then we saw 3 people walking in. The military police side does not make reference to that. They say, oh no, there was a bomb in the chair. Right. So I think this is a play being made, because Zachary, I think, is very close with Historia. Because they, I think we've seen their relationship kind of, not like we don't see it on screen, but they're always together. He's kind of, I'd imagine he's her right-hand guy. So I think this was a play to try and like take control of the Eren situation by one side of the government, and I think it backfired on them a little bit, because Pixas kind of sweeps in. And here's the eye roll thing. Jaegerist, Dave. I could not believe they said that. I was shocked. So I was like,
let me be clear. You're as mad as I am that they called them Jaegerists and not Jaeger bombs.
Oh my god. That was a Jaeger bomb for sure.
Jaeger bombs.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, they did not actually just call them Jaegerists.
I wonder if it like translates like in its original language. Like, is it that cringe in the manga? If it is, fine, whatever.
And I don't know. I like it was. I just blew right past it because there's so much was going on. But I
didn't love it either.
I was like, are you fucking for real?
So Zachary is dead. I believe he was like the head of the military, or at least like a big head of the governing body. He was the premier. So he's dead. Ain't no chance he's coming back. And it's also revealed, while they're talking about the Jaegerists, that that Eren's been sprung free. Mm-hmm. So we had that prediction last week. I think all we really said is like, he's probably gonna get busted out, and he did. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense. And then I thought the undervalued moment in this whole thing was Armin and Mikasa's reaction, because they seem pretty fucked up over it.
Yeah.
I don't want to blow by everything, but I think you kind of covered it. There's clear tension amongst the scouts and the military police. Military police are kind of pointing the finger.
As they do, as they have.
Yeah, as they do. It seems like it might be, for a second there I was kind of worried, like, are we just going to resort to infighting? But Pixas...
Again, are the scouts going to be on the run?
Yeah.
That's where I thought it was going to go, and then Pixas shows up.
Yeah, so Pixas does a good job being like, listen, you little shits.
Yeah.
Interesting play by him. He's like, this sucks, but we probably shouldn't prosecute Eren. We should just focus on where the fuck is Zeke. How do we, mobilize and not let this get worse? So he's in like, response mode. But I loved Armin and Mikasa's reaction. They clearly look kind of upset. Mikasa's, I think it was like Jean or someone says like, should we question your loyalty? She's like, we almost got caught in that fucking explosion.
Yeah.
And then there's this scene in the carriage when they're on their way, they're leaving somewhere, and Armin's sort of talking in circles about, I'm sure Eren will understand if we talk to him. And Armin and Mikasa, does not look so sure.
No.
And I think you and I had talked about in last week's episode, we've mentioned several times now how Mikasa needs kind of a moment. She needs a win. She needs to grow. Her character needs to grow a little bit. And
we saw some of that.
We've seen some of that, because she has this fun little scene with Azumabito as well we could talk about. But
yeah,
I think more and more now that maybe, this is the twist. Maybe this is her come to Jesus moment, is her character motivation of just protect Eren at all costs is flipped on its head, and she has to be deployed against him, or, in order to protect her home and the people she cares about and everything she stands for. Maybe that means not following Eren blindly. I don't think that we're there yet, but I think that this is a big moment. She was nearly killed in that blast, and it's not clear whether or not Eren was aware she was in the building, if he cared at all. So yeah, I thought that was a big moment for her, or a potential moment that maybe we'll look back on later and be like, oh shit, like things really started to fall apart around here.
And there's a couple other interesting things too in that scene. I guess one last note on that kind of the showdown between the scouts and the other side of the government. Armin, which I found weird. Armin has had some weird whiny moments this season. I don't like.
They haven't done a ton with him.
No, and he kind of just like shoots up when Pixas. I think Pixas comes in, kind of gives his little 2 cents, quick 2 cents, and then Armin does this. Oh, Pixas, you are the only person we can look to, and I was kind of like, wow, dude, like, relax. And then Pixas is like, you're right, and then kind of proceeds and like drops the plan on everyone. When I think about that, that also kind of maybe kills my theory a little bit, because you feel like the other side of the government, like, unless Pixas is for sure the next in line to be running the show after Zachary, how is there no infighting of people gunning for his job? You know what I mean? So it's and that's the thing, like, it's a lot of red herring action this episode. They're throwing a ton of stuff at us.
Yeah, they are.
And it just splintered, like, it hits and it's splintered off, and it's, I don't know, this is a weird episode. It's a great episode. It's a real thinker. You know what I mean? It's a lot of unknowns, and it's just a lot of stuff to mull over.
Directional changes. I also felt like the reveal scene, because it was cinematic. You could tell they put some effort into the animation and into the soundtrack, but the reveal scene of like Aaron, walking up the hill and putting on the coat, the robe or whatever, and meeting. You realize it's Flock and several others that are behind getting him out, and the music, and he's got like the Titan marks on his face. You could tell he's probably shifted recently.
Yeah.
And he just immediately goes into like objective mode, like find out where Zeke is being kept.
Yeah.
So it's clearly at least kept that from him. But
they had to. That was so smart of them. And Pixis makes a big point of that, because they say who in this room knows where Zeke and his story are.
Yeah.
And I think Hanj says Levi and the 30 men.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of?
What's that?
It kind of reminded me of Fight Club. Like,
oh, okay.
And bear with me here, but Aaron like walking up that hill all cinematically, and all these people kind of waiting on his every word, and they've got clothes ready for him, and you know what I mean, and he's just like straight to business, like, this, everybody, who else is ready?
Yeah.
Here are your orders. Get moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was very fucking like Waco, like a fucking Messiah just addressing his followers, being like, here's what's next.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's really true, because Aaron, even though Aaron has had a lot of power within the scouts and the military and parody, because of like just his status as like the Titan and the founding Titan, he's never really been a shot caller.
Definitely not.
And it was just to see him so clear and serene, and just like not barking orders, but like it's kind of going back to, this is why I think there's some water of them saying like he's been turned, because he's kind of acting like a zealot. It's like, where is Zeke? Like, it was monotone, but it was focused. You know what I mean?
I remember we talked about that in the beginning of the season, how he just seems very even,
Yeah.
but back then we talked about how it was maturity.
Yeah.
Right? And about how he just seems more even-keeled. It's been 4 years. He's grown up. He's seen some things. He's probably had to deal with quite a bit. I still think, maybe he's been manipulated, but I think there's a really big chance, not that he goes like full villain mode, but that Aaron is simply just ends up being a really important casualty of this whole cyclical war thing that goes on. Because if you look at what they've done with Reiner and Gabby, and obviously Aaron at the forefront, is like they've really shown you how people get radicalized, and how it's very easy to develop a bias and a hatred for people. You know what I mean? Just out of salvation and trying to find freedom. So if Aaron becomes like one track mind, like, I gotta fucking in order to finally be free, a lot of people are going to have to die, which is kind of where he's been.
Mm-hmm.
If he just decides to put all of his eggs in that basket, we can't say we didn't see it coming, because it makes a lot of sense.
And this is, I think you and I a few weeks ago had said how much of a bummer it would be if Eren just turned out to be the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode has kind of pointed that finger, and I think it's a little too obvious. And
I don't disagree.
It's I like, if we're wrong, and we'll see how it plays out, and but I do think there's something else up Eren's sleeve. He could be looking for Zeke maybe they wanted him on the island for a reason, and maybe because Eren's on this warpath of taking all the Titans, trying to his little collection. Who knows, like, if he's just trying to, because that's the thing too, like, maybe he wanted Elena to talk to him so she could reveal some more cards and trying to get a better idea of maybe what Zeke's playing at. There's so many sides, there's so much like cloak and dagger.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
And for what it's worth, I don't disagree. Like, is it possible that Eren has gone into recon mode? Like, he clearly did a good job doing that while he was in Marley. We still don't know how long he was there and all the things he saw. So yeah, it's definitely possible this is a play. There are plenty of reasons why he might want Zeke isolated, and maybe he wants to get the beast for himself. Maybe he wants to immobilize Zeke and give it to Historia. Maybe they actually have an understanding, and that the two of them want to do some shit together. I don't know.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it just kind of popped into my mind. They kind of blew over that whole 1 year in Marley, eh? Because they kind of made it sound. There's that episode with the original crew. They're in the wagon, and they're talking about, Hanj says the plan is we're gonna go find her. We're gonna go get our own info and get our own. Like, we're gonna introduce them to ourselves.
Still haven't seen that.
We still haven't seen that. But Pixas makes reference to Eren, like when he's talking to Elena, he says, "You talk to Eren," and then next thing, Eren's on a boat. Yeah. So Eren didn't disappear from them while they were in Marley. He was still in Parody, and he snuck away.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that Marley mission never happened.
Yeah, or maybe he disappeared. They didn't know where to, and it took them some time to realize. And then, by the time Jean and Co. got there, they were just there to try and figure out what the fuck was going on. But we don't know. But, what we do know is he certainly forced their hand.
Yes. They really hit that home this episode too. What he made us do.
Yeah. So there isn't much left to cover, but we should mention the Mikasa Izumabito scene. Yeah. That was cool. It was good to see Mikasa grow a bit of a backbone here and be like, well, not that she doesn't have a backbone, but it was like good to see her call Izumabito kind of on her shit and be like, listen,
it felt like she was like the the avatar for the fans.
Yeah.
At least for me, I was like, yeah, tell her to go fuck herself. Like, I don't trust her at all.
And at the same time, I was satisfied with Izumabito's answer as well. Yeah. I was like, good on you for like calling out this bullshit political move and being like, you're using my ethnicity and our ancestry as pretext because you're fucking money hungry.
Well, they also reveal you're
using this for PC points.
Yeah, and they say it's not Hizuru that's backing them up. It's the Izumabito clan only.
Yes, exactly.
And they've kind of made it sound like it was a whole nation that was backing them.
Yes, and it seems like now what might be clearer is that the Izumabitos may have kind of stuck their necks out on behalf of Hizuru, hoping that this bet on Paradis kind of pays off. So there's a whole other world of political intrigue there. But, I was satisfied with Izumabito's answers. She's like, yo, don't get it twisted, huh? Like, we still like you and shit. I thought that was a good interaction. I was glad that Mikasa called her on that shit. And that I was satisfied, relatively speaking, with Izumabito's answer.
Do you really think that's a close on that little story?
No. I think, I would be pretty disappointed if it was. Only because... I guess this would be like, not my nitpick of this episode. We haven't nitpicked a lot this season, but one thing is like that fucking tattoo / brand. If that goes nowhere, like we're talking, final season of Game of Thrones, like here's a plot line that will go nowhere type shit. Like that that better
last
mean
hour.
something. Yeah, that better mean something. Like, other than, like, because so far, all it has really showed us is there once was an Asian girl from an Asian country.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like,
yeah, I 100% agree.
So
They're
far,
not
that's
done
all.
with that.
So, I don't think so. Like I said, when we originally learned about that hand wrap or that wrist wrap, apparently it was planted super early in the manga, and then revealed super late. So I have to assume that if he planted it that early, that hopefully there's some kind of payoff, or maybe it's just being mishandled in the anime. We'll know more, obviously, as things wrap up. What's really left? I mean, the episode basically ends on Mikasa, Hanji.
Yeah, there's a quick little scene with the original group there, and very interesting. You could tell Connie and Jean are definitely leaning one way, and it's funny too because it's strange because Armin at first was the one that did not trust Eren and where things were going. And Mikasa was, again, her own form of zealotry, of her own idolization. Yelena, like, not quite like that, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a little different, lifelong friends, but she was so steadfast for him. And now Armin is the one of, no, like, let's just talk to him. It's fine.
Yeah.
And Mikasa's
Bit of denial there.
But denial for sure. And Mikasa's kind of, like, flipping a little bit of, I don't know. It's like you said, like, we don't know. I'm not sure that's a good idea or if that is going to work. But she was also so defensive against Connie and Jean, and I don't know, that infighting. I know it was quick and momentary, but the fact that Hanj had to shut it down, it kind of made my stomach twist a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're being not torn apart, but it's not looking good. We're not the united front that we should be.
Yeah.
Considering the stakes and what we're up against, and we're reminded of what we're up against right before credits roll.
The good, like the positive, the silver lining of this is that there is quite a few characters that are fully aware that that is what Zeke's plan has been, is to kind of the dissonance in the ranks and the separation of close knit units. And again, Zeke is a bad motherfucker, and I think we're about to see him.
I got a theory I'll get to soon.
Okay, all right.
Well, I was just gonna say though, like I agree with everything you said, but we, right as credits roll, we're reminded of what they're up against, and that's we learn that Piek has already infiltrated Parody.
I genuinely was shocked.
She's got some legs.
Yeah.
She moved quick.
Ran right across the ocean
on all four legs, just like a water strider.
Do you think her presence being there kind of sets up like a quick action episode? I think they've been leading up to action is happening very soon. If not, maybe not next episode, but I feel like we're going to see some.
Maybe the whole season ends in action. The last few, I don't know.
I would think.
I was shocked too that she was there that quickly, but we don't really know how time is working, right? Like we get some quick flashes here and there, so it's hard to say how long it's been since they decided to retaliate quickly. We also don't know what kind of time it takes for Marley to get over there. Like their port was destroyed, but surely they must have had at least one ship. So did they send everybody? Did they send just Piek? We don't know. But the point is, she's there and she got there quick. And I don't know about you, but I think one of the best characters that they've done on that Marley side is definitely her. She is definitely formidable.
She's a huge standout for sure.
Yeah. So she, her intellect, her wariness in a battle, in a fight, you definitely want her on your side if you're Marley, which makes me obviously worry for the scouts. So yeah, I was surprised that she was there that quickly.
Yeah, it's about throwdown, because if she's there, there's no way. The first thing I thought of when I saw her was there's no way she's there by herself. And they open this episode up with Annie, and Porco, Galliard, now knows what his jaw is really for.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to make a gun for Annie. And I don't know if it's next episode, but I think they're, because who knows, the HQ, that bomb could have been a distraction maybe for Eren and them. but it could also, someone could have taken advantage to sneak in to look for Annie.
I like that.
Potentially, it's maybe a little bit stretched because they have no idea where they would hide her, but Reiner would have an idea.
He certainly would. I like the idea. I like the last minute Annie play. They have definitely not, like, they've done, the show, has done a good job baiting that resource. Like, they don't go to the Annie well too often. Mm-mm. They remind you just enough that she's there. Mm-hmm. And so if and when she does come fucking kicking and screaming out of that thing, it's going to maintain all of its shock value. So I'm curious to see who gets it. Do you want to hear my theory about Zeke?
Let's go. Let's do it.
The problem is, Grant, I'm so confident
Okay.
I'm so confident about this prediction that I almost want to give you a spoiler warning. I've seen nothing, but I'm 99.9% sure this is exactly what's going to happen.
Let's do it.
Do you want me to proceed?
Absolutely.
All right, listeners. And for the listeners, I haven't seen or heard anything. I'm just a genius. This is going to really bite me in the ass if this doesn't work out. Remember the wine and Niccolo?
Oh, yes, okay.
It has to be. He has spiked it with Titan serum, and it's going to make them... I don't think they're all going to change the second they drink it. I think it makes them susceptible so that when Zeke screams his fucking head off, they're all going to pop. Anybody who's drunk the wine might pop, or something along those lines. I don't know exactly how the mechanic will work, but that's my guess.
Dave, that's a big brain theory. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
Well, I don't fuck around, Grant.
That is... Wow. Yeah.
It's my guess. And... Yeah. I don't know if I'm 100%, but I think, that's my guess. But obviously... But now...
Do you think the rumbling is exclusive to the Titans within the wall, or is it going to kickstart anything on the island?
Ooh, good question. I would... Oh, God, imagine that's the twist. It's
you
like,
know what I mean?
When when the two Titans fucking hold hands and do the rumbling, do they accidentally or intentionally turn every Eldian into a mindless pure Titan? That would be...
You sick fuck. I'm going to be thinking about this for days.
Yeah. So I don't want to go that far, but my guess is if you've ingested the Titan serum, like, what we do know is, like, if you are stabbed into the spinal cord with it, you pop. And we do know under certain circumstances, if you're yelled at by Zeke, you also pop. Do you have to ingest said serum beforehand? Can you just drink it? Do you even need the serum if he yells at you? I don't know. But what we do know is there's this weird wine thing, and Zeke is being held, and now we have what we haven't had is, like, we have a motivation. Like, if he's in league with Eren, he clearly wants to escape, right? Like, before now, you could have made some argument, like, I wouldn't have agreed, but you could have been like, oh, well, there's nothing to suggest he isn't happy. Like, yeah, sure, being held captive sucks, but, like, he did choose to come here, and he is, quote, on our side, so... like, what would he have to gain by leaving? But now we kind of know the answer to that. And that's, well, Aaron's rebelling too. And if they only really want each other, what the fuck does he need the, Levi and co for?
Yeah.
So why don't we get the fuck out of Dodge? And how would he do that? Boom. You yell at the wine drinkers. Be like, hope you enjoyed that Cabernet Sauvignon, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. And because now that you mentioned the wine... I don't know if this is in the next week, the preview, or if this was at the end of the episode. They show the Grouses. Is it Sasha?
Browse.
The Browse? Yeah, it shows their family arriving at the restaurant.
Yeah, Nicolo's there, yeah.
And Nicolo's there, and then Gabby and Falco are kind of in disbelief of, what they're seeing, which is weird, because, like, they catered that one banquet hall, which was, like, very over the top and beautiful, and it kind of shows them looking dumbfounded in the doorway.
Well, maybe they're dumbfounded because it looks like home. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
But no, I agree. Like, it's weird as fuck.
Also, this is another thing too. Again, we're completely jumping off here, but last week, in last week's episode, Gabby straight up says, "Oh, that's a South Marley accent."
Yeah.
About, her dad. So
yes.
the kind of like the hit. there's a couple characters that kind of like a hick accent.
Yeah. Sasha's whole family, like, they even spell the subs differently.
Yeah, like you done fucked up, like stuff like that. But yeah,
Paul.
so that's, I don't know. They've been like kind of littering little weird stuff throughout the season. It's just, and also too, Falco at the very, like, the opening scene of this series is like him kind of seeing into the future. Where, like, when is that going to come back in?
Yeah, he was having dreams about fucking...
Him and Aaron had some similar...
Yeah, there's, like... And I don't want to go for another 50 minutes, but, like, it makes me think about shit like that. Like, you know, Falco was dreaming about being a scout. Or maybe because he's remembering something, because he ends up being a Titan shifter. Then there's the end of Season 3, where the owl... he somehow is able to remember Aaron and Mikasa, even though they're in his future. You know what I mean? Like, there's some weird time dilation shit happening. And then, do you know what the pilot is called while we're on time dilation? The first episode of the entire fucking series? It's called To You, 2,000 years in the future.
Ah, this son of a bitch.
This son of a bitch is about to pull a fucking M. Night Shyamalan on us.
Wow. This episode is probably, so far of this season, it's the hype episode.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to take the fucking cake from, like, episode 3 or 4, right before, remember Aaron in the basement?
Well, no, hype in a different sense. Like, that was...
Not tension.
That was tension, and that was lead up of a story that was being presented to us. This is not, that, you know, not hand-holding and, like, not in a bad way, but it was...
Chess pieces are moving.
We were being guided along. The story was being told to us. Yeah. This was fucking, like, you know, folder slammed on the table. Look through this, figure it out, go fuck yourself. You're wrong if you're wrong, you're right if you're right. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a mystery. It's like a puzzle at the very last hour, like the 0 hour of conflict. And it's this fucking show, man. I absolutely love it. It's when they do stuff like this right at the very crux of conflict, it's perfect.
It's working out really well. I'm really, really excited to see how this shit wraps up. I'm looking forward to a season 4 part 2 announcement any day now. Hopefully.
Do you think they're going to hold off like to the very end? They
might. I think like with season 3 part 1 they did at the very end. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry, by the way, part 2 is coming. But who knows? I still remain confident, you know, with my anecdotal like hearsay evidence that like there'll be a part 2. But you know, time will tell. I'm excited to see how, you know, obviously, like, along with everybody else, I want to know what the fuck happens with Aaron. I want to know what happens with Zeke and with Levi. God, if they kill my boy Levi, I don't know, man.
He's definitely gonna have a trap sprung on him. Like, he is not the one in charge.
Yeah, assuming my awesome theory is right. Because he probably wouldn't have drunk wine, because he's probably like, no, I'm straight edge. He seems like one of those guys.
Well, he's he's definitely focused on. Yeah. And I do find that surprising that he was like allowing his crew to be kind of being laid back. So that seemed kind of Levi-like, maybe.
Yeah, man, or maybe the Jaegerists or the Jägerbombs. Maybe they've got a couple inside men over there too. You know,
I would have laughed. It was Jaeger bombs. Like, it would have been like, I actually would have had a fucking laugh and like good joke there. Like, I know they can't, probably for like
copyright reasons or whatever.
Who knows if Jägermeister even owns that?
Jägerbombs.
That's a total other thing. But like, Jaegerist is just like, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
You could have just called them fucking rebels. Like, you could have called them radicals. Literally anything else. I mean, whatever. Coin it, copyright it, put it on a t-shirt. I don't give a fuck. Like, maybe that's why. Maybe they need to sell merch.
Oh my god, they have emblems for days. Yeah. I'm wearing, as we speak. I'm wearing the shirts. So.
There you go. I think that's about it for this episode, though.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for listening. I can't believe this season is really flying by.
12 weeks.
Yeah,
13 weeks you and I have been doing this.
Yeah. Thank you for coming along the ride. You know, every week, every now and again, we look at the numbers. It's crazy to see this show grow every time, and people listening the whole way through. We are elated that, people are actually listening to this. So you're giving us, all the encouragement we need to keep going. So we intend to. And yeah, if it's your first time listening, we do this every week. So yeah, again, this time next week, we'll have next week's breakdown ready for you to listen to.
Right on. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks. Cheers.